Begin. Sorry, a few technical glitches, but I think we're there now. So look, people will join as the session goes on. So let's begin. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Thank you very much for joining. So most of you know me. My name's Kamlesh Farah. I'm a committee member of GAA London, Gujarati Area Association of London. We've been holding these webinars for the last few months, and I'm enjoying them. I hope you're enjoying them. We've had a variety of topics on for the last few months. We've looked at a number of things from medication to ailments to general well-being. We've looked at financial well-being. One thing we haven't touched upon a lot is how do we deal with mental issues. And this week I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Manish, and Manish mentioned a little bit about a book that he's written, but also how we as individuals can better deal with emotions and feelings and how we can control them, because they themselves have well-being issues related to stress and anxiety. So whilst we've tackled nutrition, which we've done in a lot of depth, and we've tackled physical issues and how to improve our posture, our strength, our muscles, and take the right medication, I want to let Manish talk a little bit about the mind and how we can sort of help ourselves a little bit. Manish, I mentioned you're an author of a book. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, give a little bit about your background, and sort of let's open it up to people. Sometimes the mind is a scary area to talk about, and people are reluctant to talk about it. So my advice to people is please open up, please share your thoughts. This is a safe space, and the more we learn about issues, the better we become equipped to tackle them. So why don't I hand over to you, Manish?
Kamlesh, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. So I'll just give you a bit of background about myself first. I'm 53 years old, and I started my career in the corporate world. So I was an investment manager for 20 years. And 10 years ago, I decided to change career paths completely. I wanted to watch my daughter grow up. So she was 7 at the time, so I quit corporate world and trained to be a life coach. And one of the reasons I did that is I wanted to understand why we feel the way we do. Where do our emotions come from? And so as part of that kind of coaching journey, I also started reading a lot. And I literally read so many books. And what I would do is I'd kind of pick up what I learned from these books and apply them to my own life. And if they worked, then I'd carry on. And if they didn't, I'd drop them. And eventually I got to a place where I had a lot to share. And this is why I wrote my book. My book's called, I've got a copy, it's called You Don't Have to Believe That. And what this book does, it shares a very simple but powerful understanding of how the mind works to create our experience of life. And that's what we're going to talk more about in the next half an hour. And I guess what I would say is that if you keep an open mind in this next 30 minutes, it could change your life. And now I know that's a bold statement, but it has for me and for many, many people. And that's because the understanding is very simple. And I'm sure you'll have lots of questions. So what we'll do is I'll do about half an hour of talking and then half an hour of questions. And whatever questions you have, there's no judgment here. So you can ask whatever you like. So I'm going to start by asking you a question, which is going to be rhetorical because I know you guys are on mute. But the question is, and just kind of think about this for yourselves, is do you think your circumstances have an influence on how you're feeling at any point in time? So it could be you've had a bit of a health scare. And so you've just been to the hospital and they've told you there's something they need to investigate further. It could be something like that. Or it could be you've just achieved something you really wanted to achieve. And there's obviously an unlimited number of examples there. It could be positive or negative. But the question is, do you think those circumstances have an influence on your feelings? Now, for many years, I thought they did. Yeah, so surely if you've just had a health scare, then that's bound to make you feel scared. But here's the truth. Your feelings are never directly coming from your circumstances. They're coming from somewhere else, and that place is your thinking. So let me just go into that in a bit more detail. You're feeling your thinking and not directly your circumstances. And it's very easy to prove that because I'm sure all of you can relate to the fact that two people can be in exactly the same circumstance and yet feel differently. Now, if that makes sense to you, then there's the very simple proof that it can't be a circumstance, because if it was, then every person in the same circumstance would feel the same way. And we know that's not true. And that one simple kind of thought process or kind of insight led me on a journey. And so the natural thought that you guys might have, or this is certainly what I had, was that, okay, so if you're not feeling your circumstances and you're feeling your thinking, then surely all you have to do is have lots of positive thoughts and you're going to feel great. So then the follow-up question that I had to that was, well, is it possible to control your thoughts? And the answer to that is it's not. And I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, but I challenge you, even if for 30 seconds, try and control your thoughts. And I promise you, you might be able to focus for a short time, maybe a few seconds, but your thoughts naturally drift. And you'll have, did you know we actually have about 60,000 thoughts every day? And there's 84,000 seconds in the day. So it's literally, you have a thought, and then another one, and then another one. And the truth is, you can't actually control them. Some of them you'll be able to direct, but a lot will just be involuntary and they'll just pop up. And so it's almost like a pointless exercise trying to control your thoughts. And this is where kind of a lot of people get unstuck because they think, okay, well, and a lot of what we're taught kind of growing up was certainly what I was fed from kind of people surrounding me. And these are wise people that say, okay, just think positive, stay strong, and you'll be okay. But I don't know if you've tried to do that, but it's actually quite hard to do, to stay positive and strong all the time. But now what I'm going to share with you is your superpower. Your superpower is you have the gift of choice. So whilst you're feeling your thinking, but you can't control your thoughts, you can choose which thoughts you believe. It's a choice. So if you have a lousy thought that makes you feel lousy, you can say, I choose not to believe that. And it literally is a choice. And I didn't realize this from kind of a large part of my life. And the reason for that is that with thoughts, when you believe them, they turn into feelings. And feelings are very real. You can feel them in your body. So naturally, you think that, okay, the thought that created that must be real. And then it's hard not to believe it because you feel it in your body. But actually, thoughts are absolutely neutral. They have no power over you at all. They only gain power when they grab your attention or you choose to believe them. Now, remember how I said that this 30 minutes could change your life? It's that simple understanding that we have thoughts, we can't control them, but we can choose not to believe them. If you get that and really get that, then everything in life changes. Nothing actually is different, but it will feel different because it's literally like going into a restaurant and you may go to your kind of local Indian restaurant and there'll be some things on the menu that you like, but there'll be some things that you don't like. And naturally, you'll choose the things that you like. Now, you can do the same with your thoughts. If you have a thought that you don't like, that doesn't make you feel particularly good, and by the way, there's kind of only three main negative feelings, which are sad, mad, and scared, and pretty much every other negative feeling is a variant of that. And there's only two main positive feelings, which are kind of happy and excited. Now, if you feel sad, mad, or scared, that's actually your mind and body telling you, stop. Stop and don't believe you're thinking in that moment. Now, I've been doing a whole bunch of volunteer work for a number of years, and one of the pieces of volunteer work that I do is I work for Childline. So if you're familiar with that, it's a it's a helpline for young people or they call up whatever their problems are. And I had one call from an 18-year-old who tried to kill himself the week before, and he tried many times. And I initially kind of listened to his story and how he's feeling, and then I asked him. I said, "Would you like me to help you?" And he said, "Yes, please." So I took him through this very simple understanding that you're feeling, you're thinking, you can't control your thoughts, but you don't have to believe that. And that changed everything for him. Within 5 minutes, he no longer felt suicidal. That's how powerful this understanding is. So I just want that to sink in for you guys.
Manish, while you're
Yeah,
letting people, I mean, you covered a lot of information in a short period. While you're letting people, digest this, can I pose a question to them, which
of
is
course.
off your question, so it gives people a chance to sort of, and it's one that you sort of raised, and I thought, well, let's find out what people think. So Manish has asked the question, do you think you can control your thoughts? And I put out there, have you as an individual participant on this call tried to think positive thoughts? When you've had in your circumstance and, Manish mentioned a health scare, have you managed to control your position by thinking positively? And it's interesting. I mean, this is a sort of sample. We've got nearly 50 people on the call, Manish. At least a third are responding, not bad at all. And 70% have said, well, actually, we have tried to control it with positive thoughts. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so the question is you can try to do that, and maybe for a short period of time you can have positive thoughts, but have you also noticed that negative thoughts come in? The what ifs, or I wish I had done this, or I wish things were different, or why me? This isn't fair. And I mean, when you think about it logically, no one wants to feel lousy,
Mm,
right? So no one wants to have lousy thoughts.
mm,
So that's why I point to the fact that you can't control your thoughts, because no one wants to feel that way, but they can't help it, or they think they can't help it because they're believing their thinking.
yeah, yeah.
Right
Okay, good.
now, something I wanted to kind of touch on, which is important here, is that this same child that rang me on Childline, he asked the question, okay, I get that you can't control your thoughts, but you don't have to believe them. But then he asked me the question, but what if they're true? And that might be a natural question for you guys as well. It's like, well, what if my thoughts are true? Then how can I not believe them if they're true? So that question came up for me as well. And so I looked up the definition of truth. And truth has three components. Truth is something which is objective, which is unchanging, and which everyone agrees on. Now let's consider thoughts. Are they objective or subjective? Well, they're subjective. Do they change? Yes, they do. Does everyone agree with your thoughts? No. So thoughts don't meet the definition of truth. And when you see that, then you realize that, well, actually, isn't it easier to not believe your thoughts when you know that they're not even true? And so this can be quite profound when you get this, because you realize that, well, literally everything you think is made up. It's a story that's playing constantly. You can't switch it off. So I almost kind of as a visualization, think of it like when you got your TV on. Yeah, you're watching Netflix. It's a fictional program, and it's there in the background. And sometimes it'll grab your attention, and you might be watching it, and you might laugh, cry, have all the different emotions. But all along, you know it's made up. It's fiction. Now, what if you could treat your thoughts like that? Treat them like a show that you can't switch off, but knowing all along that it's made up. And sometimes it will grab your attention and you will laugh, you will cry, you will get scared, but you know deep down it's made up. So the thoughts by themselves cannot hurt you. And when you see that, it's quite liberating because it disempowers your thoughts. They have no power over you. And when that happens, then you're never a victim of your circumstance. You're only a victim of believing lousy thoughts. And so perhaps another way of thinking of this is that the way we're experiencing life is not from the outside in via your circumstance. You're experiencing it from the inside out via thought. I'm just going to pause there, because if that sinks in, then we can move on to that next bit, which is how beautifully we're designed as human beings. And what I want to share there is that kind of peace, love, and understanding is built into all of us. Yeah. And I'm going to share something which might sound controversial, but no one has a mental health problem. Yeah. It's not something that's permanent. It's not an issue. And the only mental health issue is the inability to see the role of thought in how it creates our experience of life. So when we take our thinking seriously, we can get into trouble and feel lousy. When we stop taking it so seriously, knowing that it's just a story, it's made up, life becomes so much easier and more effortless. And by the way, the type of thoughts that make us feel lousy tend to be judgmental thoughts. When we judge ourselves, when we judge others, and when we judge our circumstances. And what I'm inviting you to do here, because I know we only have a short space of time, is just to reflect on that over the next week or two. And just notice when you feel lousy, ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? And then just notice, is it a judgmental thought? Are you judging yourself, saying something like, I'm not good enough, or I can't handle that situation, like with the health scare? Are you judging others, saying they should have done that? Are you judging your circumstances? Oh, that's not fair. Why did that happen to me? So just notice those judgmental thoughts popping up. You can't stop them, but you don't have to give them power over you. They only have power when you believe them or they grab your attention. And the beauty about how well we're designed is, you know, when you get some sort of inflammation in your body, say your knee inflames. Now, inflammation on our body sends us a very clear message, which most people understand. Inflammation means to stop and rest. Well, lousy feelings are like an inflammation of the mind. They're saying to stop and let those thoughts pass. That's how well designed we are, that we're built to know when we should trust our thinking and when we shouldn't trust our thinking. And when you feel lousy, stop and don't trust your thinking. There's some lousy thinking happening, that's all. And it will pass. And the beautiful thing about thoughts, it's a bit like, and I'm using many metaphors here, but this one's a particularly powerful one, is that imagine your mind's a bit like a train station. And there's lots of trains passing through. Those trains are thoughts, okay? And you might jump on the train and it takes you on a beautiful journey, okay? Or you might board another train which takes you on a pretty lousy journey, and this is where the term train of thought comes. Now, you can choose when you notice that journey isn't particularly pleasant to get off that train. And the thing about thoughts like trains is that the less often you board that lousy train of thought, the less often it comes. Just like with train operators, if a train isn't busy, they'll stop running it. And if a train is busy, they'll run more of it. And this is why people sometimes get stuck where they go, well, I can't help it. I just keep having those same thoughts, the same lousy thoughts. Well, if you keep giving them attention, then they will keep coming back. Whereas the moment you stop taking them seriously, they tend to come back less. They might still come, but they'll come back less. And so what I'm pointing to there is that no one's broken. There's nothing in particular that we need to fix. We just have to notice how we're feeling and realize, and this is what you can call awareness or consciousness, to notice how we're feeling and realize that that's coming from our thinking, nowhere else.
Manish, can I ask you a
Yeah.
question then? So, Nalini put a very good comment there, which basically was uh, life brings about lousy things, and that creates lousy thoughts, right?
Yes.
Very present, and clearly we're all struggling to stop at that station. That's what I feel.
Yes.
And every Monday we run a cafe, and it tends to have people with ailments, and they're all, even the elderly, are slightly judgmental. They all think, oh, that person next to me is fitter, why shouldn't I be more able and walk further? Why is that person able to eat so much and not put on any weight? Why is it that um, I get stressful, when in a public environment? These
Yes.
are thoughts that go through, because a lot of the people on this call, sort of slightly more mature in their the more experienced in life. Okay.
Yes.
And but they still have this feeling, and they
Yes.
can't get off that train. What
Well,
what,
I
what is
love that because that's a beautiful segue. So, in my book, I talk about the different instruments that the judge in our head uses to make us feel lousy. And one of the things that, like as you said, Lena mentioned this, is that sometimes lousy things happen, which gives us lousy thoughts. So, let me ask you this question: does an event or circumstance have a label on it which says this is lousy? Now, of course, it doesn't. So ask yourself the question, where did that label, that adjective we just used to describe that situation, come from? Thought. And so what we do, and this is one of the instruments of the judge, is it likes to label things. Things as good, bad, right, wrong, lousy, great. But they're just labels. They're made up. Now, when you believe that label, so if you go, oh, that's lousy, like, I'll give you an example. I've lost a lot of money on shares this year. And I could say, that's terrible, that's lousy, I made a mistake, and all those different kind of adjectives I could use to describe what's happened. But that's not going to make me feel any better, is it? And effectively, what I'm doing there is judging myself. So just be careful the labels you apply to things. When you call something lousy and you believe that, you're likely to feel lousy. You don't have to call it that. You can just say, it is what it is. Now, remember how I said thoughts aren't the truth? Well, the only truth there is what is right now. Whatever is happening right now, without any kind of narrative or perspective that we apply for our own thinking, that's true. But the moment we apply thought to it, it becomes poor translation, is the best way to describe it. So I think that was Rumi's quote. Rumi once said that, I'm not a particularly religious guy, but he used the language where he said that God's language is silence. Everything else is poor translation. Or you could kind of rehash that and say truth's language is silence. Everything else is poor translation. And what's that pointing to? Is pointing to the fact that we're constantly just applying a narrative, a story to the events, lousy things, creating lousy thoughts. The other one you mentioned there was about comparison. Yeah, comparing ourselves to others and saying, oh, look, they're doing better than us, they're fitter than us, they're richer than us, they're smarter than us. So that's another very powerful instrument that the judge loves to use to compare. Now, I'm not saying labeling or comparing is lousy by itself. It can be useful to label. I mean, we have names, that's useful. They're labels. It can be useful to compare and go, well, Roger Federer plays great tennis. How can I play like him? So that's a useful comparison. But the moment you feel lousy when you label or when you compare, that's when you stop. Because it's those instruments, the comparison and the labeling, that's making you feel lousy, or those thoughts at least. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some people use this way of judgmental behavior to improve themselves. Oh, I should try harder, I should become fitter, I should stay more
Yeah.
able. But I get it, I get it. We've got is it Lata M has raised a hand. Can we take a question here?
Of course.
Yeah. So Lata, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name's Lata. My question, I hope you don't mind me, I'm giving you a challenge on what you think of the situation, but I feel that it would be true to say that some situations you can't change, like if you've been through trauma or someone's trying to push, third parties trying to push you off the cliff, you've got to live there and you've got to live, or, you know, it could even be the HMRC, you know, people have been driven to suicide. So, I mean, a lot of people think, so they don't just think, they actually plan it and do it, suicide. And then, you know, because they've actually feel there's no way out for them. So how would you help someone like that? Someone
Yeah,
who's really facing real traumas. I mean, obviously you're losing money. You could say, fine, that's a lesson. What can I learn from that to change my strategies, to do it? It's in your control. But when it's, you know, a trauma you've been experiencing for years and you just can't find anyone to confide with, and there is
yeah,
nothing in the community set up like Childline for adults or Samaritans there, but it's not always, they always ask you, are you thinking suicidal? And then they, if you're
no.
not thinking it, it drives you there, doesn't it? So those nasty thoughts are really put in front of your face.
Yes, no, I do. Thank you, Letta, for that question. It's a good question, and I've also worked for the Australian equivalent of Samaritans. It's called Lifeline out there. So when I lived in Australia, I worked with them, and so I got many phone calls, suicidal people, and so think of it this way. And again, you can challenge me on this if you like, but I've seen it in action. Let's think about what trauma is. So if something's happened to you in the past, the question now becomes, where is that right now? Can you point to the past? Is it something physical you can point to? Or is it something that's sitting in thought? You see, the past is stored
No,
thought.
it's actually constantly happening, abusive situations and constantly recurring the pattern.
Okay,
So I would say it's very, very real. It's not just a thought,
all
you
right. So,
know.
okay, so if something's happening right now, then of course that's real. That's happening right now. But even with that situation, I don't know if you've ever read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And in his book, so he was a Holocaust survivor, and he was in Auschwitz. And what he shared was that, I mean, his family were being killed around him in Auschwitz. He was being tortured. And what he said to his captors was, he said, "You can do anything you like to me, but you cannot take away my peace of mind. Yeah, you have no power over that." And I get it. It's not easy. So I'm not trying to minimize in any way when people are suffering. And I get that can be very difficult in dire circumstances. But if
Yeah,
someone,
because someone's got a fragile mind because they've been through a crash or
okay,
accident, and they're very, very fragile, and they're
so
on tranquilizers.
yeah, so here's the thing. So yeah, I mean, drugs can have an impact on your ability to process information and think with clarity. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to kind of expand on that any further. But I've seen it. Like I've seen it in my work at the Australian Samaritans. I've seen it at Childline and all, and with my coaching work. This can sound harsh, but we have a choice. We can play the victim and go, "Poor me," or we can say, "Look, I accept whatever is out of my control, and I'll come back to focusing on what is in my control." And focusing on what's in your control makes you feel more empowered as opposed to helpless. And yes, it's not nice. Yeah, painful things do happen, of course. Yeah, illnesses, loss of life, all that stuff. So pain is inevitable in life. But suffering, so the continued pain from the same event, is a choice, because we can choose not to kind of believe those lousy thoughts about things that have happened. Now, like I said, this is a very kind of short, kind of almost like a taster session. And so I wouldn't want to kind of focus too much on this, but look, I'm happy to talk more about this with anyone, because I've devoted my life to helping people kind of enjoy life and live with more peace. So we can happily talk more about this later if you like. And Kamlesh, feel free to kind of share my details with anyone you like.
Yeah, so look, thank you for that, Manish. So there's a few things. One, this is recorded on YouTube, so we'll share that with people. We'll share Manish's contacts as well. And of course, he's got a book called, You Don't Have to Believe That, which talks a lot about this. But let's use this forum to share thoughts and share feelings. And I think, and Nalini's come back, and I did ask Nalini to comment, but she's come up with a question, which I think is a good one. You can, most people will read this, but I sort of narrate it for people. So we're born with strength of mind. If we are weak in being able to train our thoughts in a positive direction, then is there something we can do to strengthen the mind? So do you recommend any particular programs, books, or tips?
Yes.
I'm guessing is what Nalini's getting at. Is there anything you can give us in its pointers, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess there's this overarching theme here in terms of how to kind of help yourself when you're feeling lousy, which is get out of your head. Yeah. Remember, if you're feeling the thinking, then lousy feelings must be coming from lousy thinking. So what can you do? Get out of your head. Get out of the thinking. So there's a lot of ways you can do that. Taking walks in nature is kind of a very beautiful and simple way of just getting out of your head. And I'm sure you've all felt that when you've gone for a walk in beautiful countryside, or just out looking up into the sky, you tend to get out of your own thinking and start appreciating what's around you, the world as it is right now, just as it is. Not trying to change it, not trying to fix it. So going out into nature is a great way of kind of what I call quieting the mind. Yeah. Because what tends to happen is when we feel lousy, we have lots of thinking. It's lots very fast and very busy, our thinking. So going out for a walk, exercising, that's another great way, because again, when you stimulate your body, your mind tends to quieten down. And I can say this firsthand, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that. Focusing on one of your senses, so that could be any of your senses, touch, smell, taste, any of them, yeah, kind of maybe just focusing on an object, yeah, for a short period of time, a few seconds or a minute, okay, that can help to get you out of your head. It could be closing your eyes and listening to sounds around you, yeah, or kind of touching something, really kind of focusing on kind of the feel of that. You can even kind of touch your thumb and your finger and your index finger and just see how that feels. And kind of, again, all these things are getting you out of your head. Meditation. Now, when I first started meditating, I used to find it frustrating, because it was like, but wait there, I'm still having lots of thoughts and I can't control my thoughts. And it's like, oh, this doesn't work. And then I realized meditation is not about fixing, changing, or controlling your thoughts. It's about observing your thoughts. And now I see more clearly that it's just about noticing them, knowing that they're impermanent, they're passing through. So let them pass through, and you can pick and choose the ones you like. So those are kind of few kind of ways you can help quieten the mind and feel less lousy.
So all great tips, and I sort of put that into mindfulness and being present and the physical exercise which we all get. Interesting enough, so I've got a question. I don't know who this person is, but it's from Samsung Sim. That's the name of the phone.
Yes.
Which is you can get the quick fixes, the quick tips, but this person's talking about what happens when you've got someone that's close that's passed away, and clearly very difficult to control emotions, because you will always have lousy thoughts, right?
Correct.
Any thoughts there? What sort of suggestions can you come up with there?
Yeah, there's one word: acceptance.
Right.
Yeah. if we don't accept what is out of our control, we're likely to suffer. And that's what a lot of us do. We kind of what I call fight with reality. So we go, why did this happen? Yeah, that's not fair. And all we're doing is fighting with what's happened or what's happening. And 100% of the time we lose if we fight with reality. So again, I love my quotes. Eckhart Tolle said this, like, when we live in total acceptance of what is, that is the end of all suffering. And I share quotes because sometimes just one quote can capture someone's attention, and that can change everything for them. But I think that's a really powerful one. When we live in total acceptance of what is, that is the end of all suffering. So of course it's not nice to lose a loved one, especially if it's a lifelong partner. I get that. And so at no times am I trying to minimize anyone's feelings and emotions. Feelings are real. Yeah. Feelings are how we experience life from moment to moment. The thoughts that create those feelings are not real. And understanding that can change everything.
Amazing. Do you want to go on to some more topics, or should we? I mean, Lato's raised a hand again. Happy.
Whatever works for the audience, really.
Let's go to Lata, who's raised her hand.
Sure.
Yeah, Lata, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. Just following on from your tips, I think I liked the one that you showed worked when I think just recognizing your thoughts and actually becoming aware of it and then seeking help, reaching out, telling someone about it, not keeping it, internalizing it. And because that I think is more powerful, showing more strength and power than keeping it inside, because that's what leads to suicide, I would think.
Yes, absolutely. So it's people often think of vulnerability as a weakness, but vulnerability and courage are actually the same thing. Yeah, that both of them are stepping into the arena of life where you cannot control the outcome. So when someone is very courageous, that's what they're doing, right? They're stepping into the arena of life and they cannot control the outcome. But so is vulnerability. So yes, absolutely. When you offload, again, it's just coming back to what I was saying earlier. It's getting out of your head. You're kind of doing almost a mind dump on someone else. And when you offload that, you feel lighter. So yes, a very good point, Lata. Thank you.
And I think that's where the difference comes between a male and a female. Females are taught to speak up, or they naturally speak out their emotions, don't they? Whereas a man is taught not to, and I think that's where the higher suicide rates go.
That's right. And yeah, someone just wrote a problem shared is a problem halved. Absolutely.
And
always, but if you go to the wrong person. But yeah, it does work if you try to reach out to the right people. But I do feel about the men a lot.
Yes, and unfortunately, it's the way we've almost been brought up that men mustn't show weakness. But that's why I say courage and vulnerability are the same thing. If you're open and vulnerable with someone, then you're showing great courage as well. And so it's okay to talk, man or woman. Yeah, absolutely.
Very nice.
Manish, when people have these situations, is your advice to talk to others generally, just to try to, sometimes people get muddled in their own thoughts and they mull over issues and the lousy thoughts become more lousier.
Yeah.
Is it helpful to talk to people? Like you work for Childline.
Yeah.
That actually help sort of, evaporate.
It can sometimes, but what I always say, Kamish, is make yourself your best friend. Yeah. So when you have a situation or you only have some thoughts, ask yourself, what would you say to your best friend? Yeah. And often the advice is much more clear and sound when you're advising your best friend than when you're talking to yourself. So then if you make yourself your best friend, you're likely to give yourself better advice and much clearer advice. And the truth is that who do we spend the most time with in this life? It's ourselves. So that's what I've tried to do, and that's what I'd kind of recommend anyone to do. That the truth is, we're social creatures. Yeah, we love communicating with others, but we spend most or the most part of our lives with ourselves. So be careful how you speak to yourself. If you're hard on yourself, and I see this so often, people are so hard on themselves, so judgy. I'm not good enough. I need to prove this. And these could be super successful. But on the outside, they might seem the most successful and kind of developed people, but yet they're so hard on themselves. So something I wanted to share there is that there's nothing you need to do, fix, achieve, be, or even think to be happy. Yeah. Happiness is not conditional. So it's okay to have goals, it's okay to achieve things, but don't make them a condition of your happiness. Because all that's doing is that's a judging action again. Yeah. One of the biggest lies that the judge likes to say to us in our heads is, I'll be happy when. And I'm sure you can all relate to that. When you've said to yourself, I'll be happy when. Yeah, I used to do it. I'll be happy when I've got my degree, got a nice job, got married, had kids, nice house. Yeah, I did all of that. And yet happiness seemed to come and go. So it's pointing to the fact that that lie, I'll be happy when, there's two lies in that. One of it is pointed to, it's implying that happiness is in the future. It's not. It's right here, right now. And the second thing is, even when you achieve that I'll be happy when goal, the mind loves to change the goalposts. So don't believe that thought, I'll be happy when. And actually, I've just thought of something which might be useful to share as well. Is like, I've got a very simple formula for happiness. There's only two components. So the first one is your full attention is on what's in front of you right now. That's the first component of happiness. Yeah. In other words, being present. And the second component is not judging. Yeah. When your full attention to what's in front of you right now, it could be this conversation we're having right here. It could be when you're vacuuming the house. It could be when you're working. It could be when you're talking to your friend. When your full attention is on that action in front of you and you're not judging, you tend to be happy. Your mind tends to be quiet. So that's, to me, a very simple formula for happiness. I've been applying that in my life for a number of years now, and I've been sharing that. And honestly, it's like you can be in the most dire situation and come back to peace and happiness when you do those two things.
Yeah. Really, really good advice. I was going back to the point sort of raised a little bit earlier about men and how men are very reluctant to talk about things. They really are. And to give you some background, we've had two sessions um, at GAA at Kenton Hall where we've invited men to come and talk about mental illness. Now, I know earlier on, Manish, you said there is no such thing as mental illness, but we invited men, and we had about a good number of men, 50 odd men, different ages, 18, 19, all the way up to grandfathers. We had, three generations attend, which is quite interesting. And for people's benefit, the main issues that people, and they opened up about these because men are reluctant to talk about this, was addiction, right? So this is alcohol, drugs, good example. um finance finance for men, and relationships. Okay, and it was interesting where we had the three generations, where the grandfather who would never have talked about anything but just got on with life.
Yes.
Never really, life was maybe simpler. He just knew he had to put food on the table, have a family, get a house, something like that,
Yeah.
right? Whereas the younger, his younger grandson, he's got so many influences going on today. Most of his social media, it's being accepted. How many likes do I have? Which party am I invited to? Am I driving the right type of car? And that's caused big issues with people. And I don't think the younger generation can calibrate. They can't calibrate, whereas life was much simpler. And I just thought it was, we're trying to encourage men to open up. I don't
Yeah.
know what you think. I'm just sharing with you what we've seen in the
No,
last few months.
it's a very good point. So first of all, about men, which we talked about earlier, we're almost, even in our communities, we're taught men need to be strong. Yeah, need to be the providers. Yeah, mustn't show weakness. And talking about your feelings is weakness. No, it's complete rubbish. We know that, but it's what we're taught. And remember, when we believe something strong enough, it's not true, but it becomes our own truth. Yeah, because we believe it. And so you have to be careful how strongly you attach to certain belief systems. So I actually downgrade all of my beliefs. I've downgraded them all to preferences. It's my preference to be kind. Yeah. It's my preference to work hard. It's my preference to exercise. But I'm not so strongly attached that if I have a day where I don't do any exercise and I'm unkind to someone, I'll apologize and ask for forgiveness, but I won't be too hard on myself because, again, that's a form of judgment, right? And so, yeah, this belief that we mustn't talk about our feelings is a belief system, and that thing, Kamlesh, you mentioned, it's very valid. That with the introduction of social media, it's become a lot easier to compare, which perhaps the older generation didn't do so much of because they weren't aware what other people were doing around the world, across the world. They might know what their family, immediate family are doing, but they may not know what other people are doing. And so when you compare, like we said earlier, that's a very powerful instrument of the judge in our head.
Only thing, yeah.
And
Really?
so, yes, it's, yeah, watch out for comparison.
Yeah. Vimmel's asked an interesting question. Is it dangerous to be a deep thinker? And does your theory justify why some philosophers lose their minds and fall into deep depression?
Yeah, I mean, so it depends how we define deep thinking, right? So, I approach my thinking with lightness. So perhaps the best way to answer this and what comes to mind right now is in many religions they talk about detachment. So if I could share kind of my understanding of detachment, it's detachment doesn't mean detaching from people. Yeah. It means detaching from your expectations. So when you're a deep thinker, but you approach everything with a lightness, yeah. So not be so strongly attached. I'm visualizing a bottle here, a kind of water bottle. Say, if you hold it really tightly, your hands will hurt. If you hold it with a lighter hand, your hands won't hurt, but you'll still be holding it. Imagine if you can approach everything, your relationships, the things in your life, what happens in your life, with that lightness, with that soft touch, then it won't hurt so much, even if it goes. That could be a person, it could be a thing. And so, how I'd relate that back to deep thinking is that, yes, it can be useful to think, and you could argue this is deep thinking. Or you could say, oh no, this is so simple. You're feeling, thinking, but you don't have to believe your thoughts. That's simple. So, yeah, it does depend on how you, what deep means here, but it's not dangerous to think, but just don't take it so seriously.
Manish, were you going to mention any more items from your book, or do I go for a bit of a summary?
Well,
I've asked people if they've got any more questions.
yeah,
Wanted to keep this bite size.
yeah, sure. Well, I guess I'm just going to highlight a few other kind of
Yeah,
instruments the
please,
judge loves
please,
to use, and I've just got a little kind of
please. Yeah,
booklet I've got here. So labeling we've talked about, comparisons we've talked about, fear. Fear is simply our mind saying we can't handle the situation, right? Yeah, every fear boils down to I might not be able to handle it. So just recognize that, and so there's nothing scary in the world. There's just scary thoughts. We've talked briefly about having a strong attachment to beliefs. That can get you into trouble because you end up judging yourself and others with your belief system. So try to make them your preferences. Expectations. Yeah, the moment you have expectations and your reality doesn't meet that, you're likely to feel lousy. So yeah, again, treat your expectations with a softness. Attaching to your ego, this concept of why did this happen to me? Well, if you think things keep happening to you, yeah, that's gonna make you feel sad, mad, and scared often. So try to not be so strongly attached to this thing that we call ego. And kind of linking to that, it's like taking things personally. It's like the moment we take things personally, yeah, it's like, why did that person do that? Why did they cut me up on the road? They didn't cut you up the road deliberately. They're going through their own thoughts. Yeah, it's nothing to do with you. So let it go. And what I say is also say is try not to make assumptions. Yeah, we often get into trouble when we make an assumption of why that other person said or did something. We take it personally and then we feel crap. So try not to make assumptions. Yeah, just ask them if you're not sure why they did that or said that. So that's a very quick 2-minute summary, but my book goes into a lot more detail about these instruments and kind of how you can catch that judging action more quickly.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to go back to near the beginning of your session, where you put out a statement which is quite bold, which is you're going to give us all a superpower, right? And summarize for people again, because that was a long time ago,
Yes.
right? What was that superpower so that people get that? I want them to take something away, try something for a week or two, and let's revisit this. So if you wouldn't mind summarizing that bit again.
Sure. Your superpower is the gift of choice.
Gift of choice.
You can choose which thoughts you believe. So probably the best visualization of that is a menu, a food menu. Yeah. You in a food menu, you choose the food that you take, like that's tasty for you, and not the one that isn't. Treat your thoughts like items on a menu. You can choose which ones.
I like that a lot. And I thought it's well worth reminding people that we talked about the superpower, the power of choice. And I do like the statements you've made about expectations, to have a softness around expectations. Don't expect too much, because sometimes we do expect a lot. And I think that's really healthy to put it that way. You also talked about preferences, where we make the preferences. Don't let other people make the preferences for you and behave based on what other people, you know, behave. So your preferences that Manish talked about for himself. Well, I want to do exercise, so I'll do that. You know, I want to get healthy, or I want to go to work. Make those your choices, which is very, very good. And what I think we're guilty of this. I'm guilty of it for sure. Don't make assumptions, because we all do. We all do. We get it these days when people send emails, when people send WhatsApp messages. Sometimes the communication channels are never clear, and people make an assumption, oh, that person thinks like this about me, or thinks what I've done is wrong because of A, B, and C. I'm making an assumption.
Yes.
And I think they're all very, very good, Manish. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure.
Any more questions? I've asked people. Um, I think we're going to hit the hour mark now shortly. So what I will do with people, I will share the link for this session with people. After this, I will also share Manish's contact details, and please search out his book. Remind people, Manish,
I
what the
can
book
send
is.
you a link to it's on Amazon and it's on Audible, so I can send you a link for that, Kamish.
Yeah, and remind us the name of it again, please.
You don't have to believe that, so I'll just show you what it looks like. So if you find it on Amazon, so
Very
you
nice.
either search that name or search my name.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I was going to ask you, some of the, I should have asked you this before, but you mentioned you work with some Olympiads and athletes.
Yes.
What are you trying to do with people like that? What are you, because they seem to be high achievers in their world, don't they? But what
Yeah.
do you do with them?
Well, I'll give you an example. So Jana Pittman, 400-meter runner in Australia, and world champion 400-meter runner, and she kept getting frustrated that she wanted to be the personal best and she couldn't. And so I just shared a very simple insight with her. I said, your peak performance is a simple formula. It's your capacity, which is your natural ability, the skills you've learned, and the effort you apply. That's your capacity, minus noise. And noise is how much thinking's going on. So because she was being hard on herself with her high expectations, her muscles are tensing up. And when she was tensing up, she wasn't running as fast. So the moment she let go of her expectations, she started smashing her personal best. So that's a very simple example of this in action, even with, as you called, top performers.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for
Pleasure.
sharing. Everybody, thank you so much for attending. We've got another session for you next week. Watch out for the WhatsApp messages, the emails, which will give you details as to the topic. Oh, Lato's raised her
Sorry.
hand again. But
Sorry,
you,
but
you
this
don't want us to go, do you, Lato? What have you got? Go and
one
share
of
with us what you've got.
it's one of my passionate subjects. I could talk about it for hours.
No, go for it. Go
But
for it.
no, I think we had a third party text dropped into our group, so I don't know how I'm going to get the link and
Okay,
how
which
I'm
group
going
are
to
you
get the
part of?
number.
Yeah, which group are you part of, Lata?
Sam's yoga group.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay.
It's Manny. She
Yeah,
posted it.
yeah, okay.
And
We'll send that to you, okay.
yeah, and the other thing I just wanted to add was that for me, what works is that I've had to change my mindset about laughter and humor and laughing at myself when I make mistakes. And I really love that because now that 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 philosophy or that interaction with myself has been a game changer for me because now I don't take life too seriously.
And that's a beautiful way to live, Lata, honestly. Don't take yourself so seriously.
I like to just laugh you if I don't need to.
Lovely.
Because, life's too serious and it's all a game, really. We weren't meant to live like this. So it obviously is going to impact our brain because we weren't meant to live like this. Like you said, rubbish and false thoughts, I would say, belong in the bin. So get them out and throw them and don't bring them back. Because I love the feeling of when my bin men have been, oh, it's gone. I feel lighter now. So that little tip, for anyone who wants to take care.
So
Just
your
let it
tip really, Lata, is make sure you empty your bin out regularly.
declutter.
Managed some great feedback and comments. I'm sure you can read them on the chat from Sadesh and Chan and Pratima and Rita and Nalini. So thank you very much. I think it was for me. I wasn't too sure whether to put this topic on because it's something that it's a bit intangible for people, but I think it's useful. And the more we talk about this, the better better it is. You
Yeah.
know.
No,
Thank
thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, everyone, for kind of sharing your time. And if you want me to come back and talk about anything in a bit more detail, I'm happy to do that as well.
I think what I want you to do is come into a live workshop that we do with our male groups.
Happy to.
And because I think you can't cover this in 45 minutes. You just,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, good night, everyone. Safe journey home. Wish you well. Stay healthy, and we'll speak to you next Thursday. Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you.